The Houston Rockets just traded the 44th pick in the draft for AJ Griffin, youngster from the 2022 draft class. So we're going to be talking about that today. We have a Hawks content creator, so you're not going to want to miss this episode of the Bradeaux and Will Show.
All right, and welcome back to the episode of the Bradeaux and Will Show. As Brad talked about in the intro, we did trade pick 44 for AJ Griffin out of Duke. Was drafted to the Atlanta Hawks in 2022. Now Houston Rockets. So we got our guy. He's a content creator for the Atlanta Hawks, David. He's gonna come and talk to us about AJ Griffin, kind of what it was like for him coming out of Duke, going into Atlanta, and then what might have led to him being traded today, kind of just get a overall profile on him and what he can do for the Houston Rockets in the future. So without further ado, David, can you let people know where they can find you and your content at?
For sure, and I appreciate y'all having me on. Looking forward to talking about something, even though this is a painful day for Hawks fans. I can't sugarcoat it. I fell to my knees. But so I drop content on TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, all under the same name, DLEAF43, number 43 spelled out. So again, appreciate y'all for the opportunity.
That's for sure. And I mean, we can jump right into it. So I don't know how Brad feels. Matter of fact, I saw you had a little write-up today, Brad. I was super duper high on AJ Griffin in the 2022 NBA draft class. I wanted him. As a matter of fact, it's kind of ironic that y'all had 16 and we had 17.
Yep.
And I remember I wanted Tari Eason. Like, I think that was the guy I wanted. I know that's the guy I wanted the most. But I remember I was like, if AJ Griffin falls, I would be really cool with him at 17, and y'all took him at 16. I guess what were your thoughts on AJ Griffin as a prospect coming out of Duke when you guys first drafted him?
Man, I was so hyped for him, and I don't know how much people know about AJ before he came to Duke, but he was a very dynamic player before he had a foot injury. Super bouncy, very athletic, and like you said, we were kind of also looking at Tari Eason in that range. So actually, at that time, I was upset we didn't take Tari because I thought Tari was the type of player we needed. I still kind of feel that way. Like if there was a way for me to get Tari off the Rockets and onto the Hawks, I'd do it. But
Too late.
Unfortunately, it seems like y'all made him untouchable. But AJ also sort of fits both teams in that same way because he's more than just a shooter. And so coming out of Duke, he had the highest high volume 3-point shooting percentage of any prospect since 2008. Like Reed Shepherd just blew it out of the water at 52%, but AJ was right there at around 44%. So just to give you the idea of the type of shooter he was that young with that volume, it was really unprecedented before his freshman year.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I was high on AJ Griffin. I scouted that 2022 draft class pretty well. We got 2 picks. So I was looking into it. But yeah, AJ, as you mentioned, dynamic shooter. And that injury did zap his athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
And the defense, was an issue for him at Duke. Can you speak to his defense and maybe why he fell out that rotation in Atlanta this past year?
Yeah, so starting with the on-court stuff, AJ, while he's I wouldn't call him a twitchy athlete. I wouldn't say he has burst or necessarily accelerates quicker. If you think of someone like Andrew Nembhard or Jalen Brunson, how they get to their spots offensively, that's very similar to the way AJ operates. So if someone's attacking a closeout, he's not necessarily blowing past them. It's just more so he knows how to decelerate and sort of leverage his advantages that way. So because that's the way he attacks offensively, his defensive foot speed and overall technique is not refined. And it's because he doesn't have quick feet, he can't make up for bad technique. And so one of the biggest issues with why he felt the rotation was, number one, we had a new coach, right? Quinn Snyder, he likes versatile wings who can shoot the ball but also can defend. I know, when I put up a stat like that, it's like, wow, how could the Hawks let that go? Because he had such a great shooting season. But in reality, he was so bad defensively that Garrison Matthews was a better option. Y'all know about Garrison Matthews. Y'all know
we know about that guy.
So Garrison, of course, he's going to try as hard as he can. He takes charges, all that. But he's also going to take some wild-ass shots. That's just kind of who Garrison is. But the defensive ability for him to be in the right positions, take charges and all that was a huge differentiator when it came to AJ Griffin. Because he missed time at the start of the season due to an injury. He had some off-court stuff with his family. It didn't necessarily seem like he kind of went off the deep end a little bit before the season, had some very conspiracy-heavy tweets. I don't want to speculate a little bit too much about that, but it did seem like that might have alienated him, or he might have not been as focused as he was in the season before. So with that combined with the fact that new coach, he wasn't familiar with the defensive scheme, and the Hawks were switched to a less drop heavy scheme, and now we were trying to blitz and hedge a lot more. And so that requires the perimeter defenders to be on a string, and that's not something he was comfortable with doing, which is why when he came back, he was in College Park. So the defense isn't something that like I don't think is ever going to be fixed, but I do think he needs consistent reps. I think he needs a system that works for him. And Houston may be that system because you have all those other perimeter defenders who can take those like tougher matchups.
So do you? Oh, were you gonna say something, Brad?
No, that's all you.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say. So like, what? I guess that was, him falling out the rotation with the defense. That was kind of the nail in the coffin for you. So I guess today's move for you guys was more of like a salary dump kind of move, and maybe kind of give him a change of scenery. You think that was just it in terms of why he was traded today?
Yeah, so as it stands right now, the Hawks are going to be over the luxury tax, and our ownership does not like to pay the tax. And I can't say I don't blame them when we're not competing, right? As much as I want the ownership to try and be competitive, the team right now, they need to shuffle some things around before they start paying the tax. We can't run it back. And so when you're looking at this roster, you have Bogdan Bogdanovic, you have Trae Young. Again, they're competing on defense. Trae got better this season, but AJ Griffin's offensive value, as much as he brought, if he's not knocking down shots, you can't have a third defensive liability in that rotation, especially with the way that Clint Capella fell off. And like you said, it's also a money-saving move, which is something the Hawks are notorious for. So now you have the number 16 pick going from, I forget how much he was making, maybe 3 or 4 million, maybe a little bit higher than that. Now you've got a second rounder in Nikola, who's at the 43rd pick. It's considerably less money. They may not even bring him over. So it saves them money, but it also allows them to get a little bit bigger, a little bit more versatile. But again, I think it's something that Hawks fans, like, we're all like, dang, it really sucks for us, but I do think he'll thrive given the opportunity in Houston.
And yeah, and speaking of his opportunity in Houston, the Rockets, I mentioned on the podcast yesterday, 3 years in a row, they were bottom 10 in three-point shooting. The Rockets brought in Reece Shepard, who shot 52% at Kentucky. Now you're bringing in AJ Griffin, who had, really good shooting seasons at Duke and his rookie season. This past year on 3.6 attempts per game, I believe he shot 39% from three. And really quickly, David, can you put out the stat? It was 56 effective field goal percentage, the highest percentage by a teenager from a rookie season in NBA history of volume.
Yeah. And so that was like among players who took at least 200 threes in their rookie season, he had the highest effective field goal percentage. So that sort of accounts for the value of taking a 3-point shot. And the reason why that's such a staggering stat is like the rest of that list, the majority of it is stars. You got Luka on there, you got Tatum, y'all guy, Jalen Green's on there as well. And so he's sort of in that same mix of really gifted shot creators. And again, not on the same volume as a Jalen Green or Jason Tatum, but it's important because he can sort of leverage those advantages created for him by a star player because he has that shot making ability. And he's also not just a shooter. Like you mentioned, the shooting gravity, but he has a much stronger build than most shooters as well. He's very solid. So when he's driving to the rim, like sometimes he can body guys out the way, even at his young age. So I think he's going to make a pretty good impact for y'all, given the chance to play. I know y'all played Aaron Holiday a lot. I'm also noticing like we have a lot of overlap with players.
We do,
so, Like, I never really thought about it, but yeah.
Bruno made a salary dump trade with you. I don't know if y'all actually rostered.
I remember that, yeah.
Who was it? Was it no? Josh went to Memphis, so it was Garuba and
Ty first, and I was excited. Like I was like, okay. One of my roommate's a Rockets fan, so he was telling me how much he doesn't like Garuba and Ty. But I was like, I feel like we could reclaim him or whatever. We ended up moving on from him, but yeah, a lot of overlap with us. So
yeah, y'all got Ty too, right? Now y'all flipped him.
He was in Milwaukee, I think.
Yeah, he's in Milwaukee now. Yeah. I would have loved to see Ty get another shot at it. I think he's an NBA talent. But to talk about AJ Griffin though, me personally, Rockets fan, I love the trade. I went into today kind of hoping that we didn't even use pick 44. I was like, I just don't really see an avenue for to add another like young player to this fold who's not like, like he's gonna be a second round pick for a reason, right? So to add another like lower talented young player to this core, I didn't really see where that would make a lot of sense considering we already have, we have the core 6 young guys from last year. We brought in Reece Shepard. You still have Dylan Brooks, still have Fred VanVleet. I think Jeff Green's coming back. Who knows what happens with Jayshawn Tate, but like, you're probably going to maybe even sign someone else this offseason to kind of may not necessarily play a role, but just be in the locker room as well. And so it's like, how many roster spots do you have to give another spot to a young guy who pretty much is not going to play? He's probably going to like be in the G League all season. Like, I don't know. I would have probably preferred to just move the pick. So for me, the pick was completely inconsequential. So taking a pick that meant nothing to me anyways and flipping it into someone who was the 16th overall pick just 2 years ago, somebody that just 2 years ago, we were definitely like, if we would have drafted AJ Griffin at 17 2 years ago, we would have loved it. And so to walk away with that caliber guy, I'm okay rostering that guy because there is, the outcome where maybe what's the situation in Atlanta just wasn't right place, right time for him. Maybe he needs a change of scenery. We've seen time and time again where certain guys get drafted to a situation, wasn't, the right fit for them. They go somewhere else and kind of start seeing more of that potential that they had coming into the league. And like he was considered one of the highest touted prospects of that class. Like him falling to 16 was like that was a fall. Like there was a point in time where he was considered in the top 5 for sure, top 10. And so getting him at 16 in and of itself was already considered a steal. So yeah, getting that guy, like he touched on, a special shooting prospect, special shooting player. He's immediately going to fill in a void of one of our biggest holes last season, which we didn't have shooters. That was like the biggest thing. Like if I'm Alperen Şengün, I'm very, very happy with what's happened over the last 24 hours because we just picked up 2 guys who should hopefully alleviate some of that pressure and give them some outlets in terms of finding shooters. I'll kind of land my plane here, and I don't know how much he's going to play next season because we are there is a lot of talent on this team as it already is. Brad talked about it on the last podcast. We have was it 9 guys? You have Fred, Jalen, Dylan, Bari, Shingo in the starting 5, then Amin, Cam, Tari. And then I know the Rockets expect Steven Adams to play. Whether or not he actually does is another thing, but they expect him to be there. So that's 9 guys right there. And that doesn't even include Reed Shepherd that we just brought in yesterday, or if they decide to, target someone else in a trade or in free agency. So it's already pretty tough to get – like I think Reed is going to struggle to find minutes from game 1, let alone AJ Griffin. So I think his opportunity might come more in a scenario where like someone gets hurt, or if it's like we want to deploy a certain lineup where it's like we want a lot of shooting in this lineup, so we're going to play him situationally for that specific those specific reasons. So yeah, I think that's everything. For me, it's like it's the definition of a low risk, high reward kind of move. If AJ Griffin doesn't pan out and he's just, what I'm saying, like this is just all who he is at this point in time, there's no real room for growth or development. You gave up a pick that you don't care about anyways. If he does hit though, you got a really good player, like I said, who 2 years ago was, very much occasion to go top 5, top 10. You got that guy for absolutely nothing. And so, yeah, I love it. I love the direction of the team. I think Stone has done a pretty good job. I know Brad was going to touch on the guy we picked up undrafted today. So, yeah, I think we did a really good job these last 24 hours.
Yeah, I'll say this last thing. No, go ahead, David. Go ahead.
I was going to ask one question because I was going to ask about if he ever gets an opportunity to play, because I think the Rockets at this point are one of the deepest teams in the NBA. And also, you kind of have an interlap between guys who are veterans and are proven contributors like Dylan Brooks. I wouldn't call Jason Tate a veteran necessarily, but you know what he is. You know what he gives you. And then Fred VanVleet as well. So it's like these guys who are going to be soaking up minutes. Does he get an opportunity? If he doesn't get an opportunity, I do fear that he's one of those players where, like, obviously most shooters are rhythm players anyway. But, like, do you think outside of an injury scenario, is there any way he could outwork some of the guys in front of him? Or do you think it's going to just come down to if they make a decision about one of the veterans?
No, I'll say it. Oh, go ahead. No, I'll let you say it.
Yeah, we'll probably say the same thing. Yeah, this is a solidified 9-man rotation. And we didn't even mention Jeff Green, who played like 80 games last season. I don't know how much he'll play this year, but I would love to see AJ get himself into the fold, but it's going to be difficult for him to earn a spot into this rotation just without any injuries or anything like that. But what I was going to, touch on was AJ, you're trading it for the 44th pick. Still he's still 20. He turns 21 in the next 60 days, I believe. So you're still getting a young talent in exchange for that 44th pick. And now we have a young core of 8. They were calling it the core 8. So I don't know. It might mess around and be the best young core in the league. It's up there with Orlando for sure. Top 2, however you want to look at it. But yeah, I love the pickup. Shooting is much needed. I'd like to see him get some minutes. if we saw a guy like Reggie Bullock get some minutes last year in spot time, so I'd love to see a guy like AJ also get a chance. A ton of potential. That rookie year was special, as David mentioned. So hope to see some of that, and I hope to see it in summer league. It's a good glimpse. I think he should play in the summer league. No reason not to get an opportunity to play with some of new teammates. So looking forward to that.
He was not on track to play with the Hawks, so I do think that might change in Houston, but he was not going to play in Atlanta. And again, maybe that's because they were going to trade him, but like there was no indicator he was going to play.
I'll add to kind of answer your question. We know based upon how they approached last season that they don't go into the season with like predetermined spots. Like Jalen Green, for as good as or I say as good as he was, he struggled. But for he's had some high highs, some low lows. Number 2 overall pick, his spot wasn't guaranteed last year, right? Like there was going to be a real battle between him and Kevin Porter Jr. before he went on to do what he did. But that was like Ime talked about, like that spot was going to be open for grabs, and that was the number 2 overall pick. So if AJ comes in, like if I'm him, I'm going to summer league. I'm going every optional workout this summer. I'm there. I'm showing out in training camp, and I'm gonna like push the envelope that like I want to play, and here's why you should play me. And like Ime is equal opportunist. Like I said, Jalen Green's spot was open for grabs last year. There were several times where like Jabari, Jalen, like those guys' top 3 picks, they got benched last year at different times throughout the season. And was like, look, we're gonna go with this guy because he's playing better right now. And I know there's like the politics of like the top pick has to play, but like we're trying to win. And so if you're not doing what you need to do, somebody else will come take your spot. So if AJ does what he's supposed to do and he puts himself in a position, it would not shock me if he finds a way, like I said, maybe not from game 1, but as the season progresses, it wouldn't shock me if he finds his way into that situation. I also think that not just necessarily from AJ signing, but even Reed, I thought Dillon Brooks was already someone who you could potentially look to move on from regardless. And I think that does kind of become a little bit more of an option now that you do have some more depth at his same position. Because I do think that sooner than later, Tari Eason's going to take that starting spot anyways. So, yeah, for me, I guess with Dillon Brooks, I'll give him the start of the season to see if he can kind of reclaim some of that magic he had for us to start last season. And then if not, like he might be somebody you see get moved, either trade deadline in the offseason, so maybe like another contender. And that will kind of start opening up some more minutes for not just AJ, but like I said, the other guys we have in this team who were like Cam and Tari, who were probably need more minutes than what they're going to get next year anyway. So, yeah, but it's going to be tough, though. Like Brad touched on, it's going to be tough. Reggie Bullock got some spot minutes for us last year situationally, and it wouldn't surprise me if, like, that's kind of how they used AJ this year, kind of in that spot minute Reggie Bullock kind of role. And then injuries are going to happen, so that's going to, that's always going to give him an avenue. So, yeah, I think it's up to him just to make the most of whatever opportunity they give him.
Gotcha.
Yeah, last thing I'll say, the Rockets did sign N'Faly Dante today. Undrafted guy from Oregon, 6'11" center, averaged 17 and 9, 1.9 blocks, 1.7 steals. Big defensive menace. You guys go tap into him. It's gonna be a fun talent. He's gonna be starting for the Rockets, I'd assume, in summer league. But that's all I'll say about that. We'll let his play speak for itself in July. But yeah, man, David, we wanted to thank you for coming on the show. That was really good insight. Once again, for the listeners, let them know they can find you on Twitter.
Yeah, of course. And appreciate y'all again for the opportunity. I'm wishing AJ the best. And yeah, you can check me out, DLE43 on pretty much any platform, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. And I'll have a video out within the next couple of days talking about the Hawks offseason plans and who we took, sort of analyzing the Reza Shea pick.
Oh, yeah, I got to ask you about that. Man, I'm glad you said that. How do you feel about the Reza Shea pick?
I'm not, like, I was on a flight and it was like, I was so mad. I don't know if y'all been, you're from Atlanta, right, Brad?
I'm from Houston. I work out.
You live here, right? Okay, you know how big that airport is, bro.
Yeah.
I walked the entire airport. Like, I just was like fuming. But I've learned.
You just took
the train at all. I just walked. But I have to accept it for what it is. And I'm still trying to flesh out my thoughts. I'm going to like have a whole monologue about it. But essentially, I feel like the Hawks are trying to, it's a copycat league. They're trying to get one of those wings that, they can do a little bit of everything. I don't think he was necessarily number 1 pick worthy. I don't think he had the highest floor. I don't think he had the highest ceiling. It's a strange class, but I mean, wings are valuable. We also every contender you look at, every championship team has someone in that same like mold as Reza Shea. So I can at least understand the vision. I don't know if they look at him as a wing or a forward. Um, some of the things with Sarr, with him, with the reports coming out, he doesn't want to play, stuff like that. I think they took who they thought was the best player in the class. I think that it may burn us later. I think Sarr is one of those guys that could have been a huge difference maker for the Hawks, but I think it's all about the complementary moves. So if it was just Sarr, we had other work to do. Now there's Riza, there's other work to be done. I can at least understand the vision. I'm not saying I don't understand the evaluation of him as the top prospect in this draft. I can't get there with him, but I can at least sort of see what they're aiming for. So now that I've calmed down, I'm just, I got to accept it for what it is. But I wasn't happy about it. I'm still disappointed, honestly, but it is what it is. So.
Did you have Klingon higher than Riza as well? What was your big board?
My big board was Sarr, then I had Ron Holland, then I had Modest, then I had Riza, then I had Klingon. And I would have preferred taking Klingon if we traded back. The fact he got to 7th was crazy to me, but I'm assuming there just wasn't a play to be made to trade back for him. But that was kind of how my board fell out. I think Ron, Matas, and Sarr were the only guys I considered for the number 1 pick, at least that I considered number 1 pick worthy. And again, this is a very wide range of outcomes for every player in this draft. Everyone is somewhere with different, they're all over the place. So, but yeah, Klingon, I think, has the impact. He would have been really impactful for us, but I can't get there again with him as a number 1 pick. I don't think he has enough. Of other guys with like a range of outcomes, I don't think he could really like return like number 1 pick value. That makes sense. Even as much sense as he would have made in Atlanta next to Trey, I just can't get there with a number 1 pick. I'd have to get some equity back from San Antonio or something like that.
Last question for me is Trae Young, DeJounte Murray. Are they Hawks next season, or is this it for them?
So, to my understanding, like for people I've spoken to, the Hawks are considering almost every option, but I'm pretty confident it won't be Trae. So I think DeJounte will be moved. It really depends on the market. If one thing that the Hawks were trying to do, I think in my opinion, was like package Clint with someone. But if you notice, a lot of teams that needed centers got centers. Like Memphis got Edie, Pelicans got Misi. So I don't know if those same trades are there to sort of move off of DeJounte. If DeJounte and Trae are Hawks next season, it has to happen at the deadline. I think we have too big of a sample size. Like I've been stressing this point all season. This got 2 seasons together. They're negative 2.67 in 2,000 minutes together as a duo. With Trae on, they're a plus 2.72 in about 1,800 minutes. With DeJounte on and Trae off, they're a minus 1.7. So like numbers don't lie over that big of a span. You know what I mean? So it's pretty clear what they need to do. Now, whether the market will dictate if they can do that or not, I'm not sure. I think it's a mistake to trade Trae. I think the play is to trade DeJounte. It really just depends on how the market lies.
Yeah, knowledgeable guy right here. Again, my goal on Twitter now is to find really good content creators for each team. And David is definitely one for the Atlanta Hawks. So tap in with him. Again, we appreciate you for coming on the show. We might have to get you on whenever we play the Hawks again later this in the year.
For sure, I'll be there.
For sure. But yeah, that's another episode of Bradeaux and Will Show. Appreciate y'all for tapping in. And we'll be back soon.